Yo, what is going on, guys? J.Yumeko here, and today we're back with some more Katawa Shoujo. Now, I can't really remember the last time I left off, because the last time I played was June 12th. So, that's something. But we are going for Hanako's route now, and I'm fairly certain that we've gotten everything set up properly the way it needs to be. So, without further ado, let's get right back on into it. The classroom empties in a blink as everyone rushes to their last-minute festival preparations. I stay behind and try to quickly finish the questions so I don't have to bother with it over the rest of the weekend, with the festival and all tomorrow. Apart from me, Hanako's the only one left, obviously waiting for Lily. It's weird that Lily comes all the way to our classroom to pick her up. I expect that moving around is at least nominally harder for her than it is for Hanako. But it's none of my business, and I naturally don't ask about it from Hanako. Despite the relative proximity of our seats, neither tries to strike up a conversation about that or anything else either, so an oppressive silence falls upon the classroom. Time passes in silence. It's probably just 15 minutes or so, but it feels longer. I turn pages of my notebook. Hanako turns pages of the novel she's reading. My pencil lead splinters against the paper just when I was about to finish a paragraph. The sound of my irritated sigh and subsequent fumbling around for a sharpener feel like they're breaking the mood in the classroom. Hanako keeps her eyes firmly away from my direction. Before long, Lily's tall figure appears in the doorway. Hanako? Her name is all it takes to make Hanako jump up from her desk and run to Lily. They talk quietly for a moment, but it isn't long before Lily leaves down the hall and Hanako idles back into the classroom, taking her seat once again. I watch Hanako out of the corner of my eye out of sheer curiosity at the idea that the two would be separated. For a couple of minutes, she does nothing but sit with her chin in her hand, staring at the desk dejectedly. The boredom evidently becomes too much for her, though, her slender frame reaching into her bag and pulling out a small book. Come to think of it, that isn't the one I saw her reading at the library. She must be quite a fast reader to get through them at this rate. But why would Lily leave her to her own devices? It seems to be quite out of the ordinary, going by Hanako's reaction. That's right. I think Lily mentioned something about going into town today before Rin bumped into us. The thought of that walk makes me look outside. The bright sun and occasional people wandering around and enjoying the afternoon make me yearn to get out of school, or at least do something other than sit here. Giving in to one of my worst vices, procrastination, I decide that history is a subject best studied on a Sunday. Or a Monday. Or any other day than this one. I give a grunt as I lever myself out of my seat, briefly debating with myself whether or not to hang out with Kenji. He doesn't strike me as the enjoying the nice weather outside with others kind of person, really. I guess I'll catch up with him later. Changing tacks, I briefly entertain the idea of talking with Hanako, but by the time I look at her seat, it's vacant. She must have left for the library. There's gotta be something to do that can kill the time. Go for a walk into town or go to the library. So likely, if we were to go for a walk into town, then we would probably run into Lily, but if we were to go to the library, we're going to run into Hanako. So obviously, we're going to want to go to the library. The library seemed as good a place as any to go. Hanako looked as if she was taken pretty off guard by Lily leaving, so she might want someone to talk to. Slinging my bag over my shoulder, I make my way out of the classroom. I walk down the hallway to the library, past a multitude of closed doors. Through each one, the sound of furious rehearsal can be heard. Rock music blares out of one door, almost as loud as a concert. I guess that's one of the advantages of a private school. There are actually enough rooms to go around at a time like this. And, when I think about it, the grounds and buildings of the school are kept in pretty good condition. That can't be too cheap. I've heard that this place has some pretty serious benefactors. The walls of the library only partially insulate the noise of the festival preparations, but they're the only sounds to be heard. Not a soul stirs here, with everyone apparently enjoying the weather outside or working on festival events. Yuko isn't here either. Maybe she doesn't work on Saturdays. I quietly walk through the library, now fairly familiar with its layout. I head to the back where Hanako's private little corner is. I run my hand along the spines of books on the way through, feeling the individual texture of each as I glance across the titles. I used to do this all the time at the library at the hospital. Some things never change, I guess. Like the smell of a library. No matter how much no matter how much care you take, the paper in books is always going to degrade with time. Probably. No matter which library you go into, anywhere in the world, it must have that same musty smell. I find something that looks light enough to read without any major thought involved, then look for Hanako in the reading area. Once again, she's sitting on a beanbag with her back to a bookshelf, reading the same book she'd had in the classroom. She's slowly making her way through the pages. Unlike last time I saw her here, I quietly take a seat in a beanbag. The noise is enough to catch her attention, but not to startle her. This delicate routine that must be followed each and every time I try to talk to her almost feels like a hunting game. Is that the same book as before?
Yes, I'm almost finished.
Cool. I wonder if I should... Do you mind if I borrow when you're finished? My mouth is faster than my mind, it seems.
Sure, you may not like it, but...
I'm sure it can't be that bad. After all, you've stuck with it, haven't you?
I guess.
I settle into my beanbag and set about reading my own book that had been buried into my bag. It's a light novel about pirates. To be honest, I've barely skimmed over the words, having chosen the book merely because it belongs to a different genre than I usually read. Finding it harder to muster enough enthusiasm to finish the book, and noting that I've inadvertently distracted Hanako quite a bit, I decide to try to make conversation. So, I see Lily left without you. She nods before taking her eyes off the book. She must have been really into it after all.
Lily said she had to go and meet someone.
Oh?
Akira, her sister.
Sister? I haven't heard her talk about her family.
She and Akira used to live together.
I thought all the students lived in the dorms.
We don't have to.
But it's easier, right? I mean, there's food here and to close to school. I don't think I've ever been to class on time so often in my life. Her badly hidden smile proves quite rewarding. In the back of my mind, I know I have a bit of homework to catch up on, but it's quite comfortable in here. No one can find me and force me into working for their pet project either. Though, now that I'm thinking about the festival, another question comes up. Hey, Hanako, what are you doing for the festival? For a split second, I think that Hanako's about to throw her book in the air from shock.
Sorry?
I was just asking what you're doing for the festival tomorrow. Anything planned?
I don't know.
Hanako answers in the way that people do when they don't want you to ask any more questions. I take it large crowds and loud music aren't really her thing. Oh, okay. Change the subject. So, what's Lily's sister like?
She's nice. She's pretty like Lily, but she dresses businesslike.
Businesslike?
She's always wearing a suit.
Ah, I see. And that makes her less pretty somehow? Hanako gives an embarrassed shake of the head.
No, just different.
I'll admit, this has got me intrigued, to hear Hanako talk about someone other than Lily as a first, and to be complimentary about it too. But as I try to picture this mystery sister, all I can think of is Lily in a suit, and I can't imagine that not being attractive. Not at all. Well, one day you'll have to introduce me to her.
Okay.
Our brief conversation ends as abruptly as it had started, and we both return to our books. The passage of time is marked only by the gradual movements of the patch of light cast through the window. Slowly, the noises from the various rehearsals in the building fade out and die as students start to get hungry and tired. Just thinking about that makes my stomach start to turn knots around itself. I think it's time to head back. Do you think Lily would be back by now? I think I might need to head back to my dorm. I'm pretty tired from this week. Not a word of that is a lie. Moving to a new school as it ramps up for a major event has been taxing, to say the least. I can feel myself nodding off as I read my book.
Okay. I might stay here a little longer.
Looking at Hanako's book, I can see that she's only a few pages away from completing it. For a moment, I consider hanging around until she finishes, but once again my stomach turns, emitting a gurgling sound. Sure thing. Well, I'm gonna head off before it gets dark. I'll see you around, okay?
Okay. See you, Hisao.
Later.
Hisao? Thank you for hanging out with me.
I can see how hard it was for her to get that simple sentence out of her mouth. It leaves me hanging for a moment. So, there's someone in this school who's even lonelier than me. Maybe lonely is the wrong word. I haven't been lacking company for this first week, but I've still managed to feel somewhat alone and detached. Maybe lonely is a wrong word for Hanako too. She is Lily after all, doesn't she? I realize I've been standing there far too long without answering, and pull off a flawless, not too exaggerated smile. You're welcome. Good night, Hanako.
Night.
I leave her to finish her book and head back to the dorms and the promise of food. God, she's adorable. Alrighty, let's go. The next day I wake up feeling a little lightheaded. It's almost noon already. Sleeping late is fine, since it's a Sunday and there are no classes. Not just a Sunday though, but the festival as well. From my window I can already see some people at the soba booth slinging noodles onto plates for people with a craving for low quality food. I throw back a handful of my morning meds and ponder how to spend the day. There'll be a few exams in the coming week, but I don't consider those as ominous as the others, so I'm not as worried about them as I probably should be. With no urgent obligations regarding education, I should be free to spend the day at the festival as I like. Because, I'm pretty sure that by this time in, who was it? In Emmy's story, because she was stopping us from eating the takoyaki, I believe, because it's bad for our health or whatever. So I'm kind of curious whether our health condition is going to take a turn. Because Emmy's route, a big part of it was me kind of getting healthier, right? I guess I shouldn't complain, it's better than nothing, and didn't cost much. As I look out towards the school, watching the people coming and going proves a surprisingly entertaining way of passing the time as I eat. Little children accompanied by parents or grandparents scamper about in the din from event to event, one hand dragging their company and the other bearing an oversized, colorful snack. I can't help but notice the age range among the people here skewed towards the elderly, something that I'd noticed when I was walking around town. This must be one of those towns where the only people left are those that lived here their whole lives and ardently refused to leave, and those wanting to live out the rest of their days in one of the increasingly few tranquil places. I guess that also goes a way to explaining how conservative Yamaku's school culture seems to be. Not that I mind one bit, I kind of like how calm Yamaku and its surroundings are. The heat, though, is another matter entirely. Sitting in one place for so long has focused my mind on how annoyingly humid it's getting, now that the hottest part of the day is here. I better get moving if I... Gwa. The sound of the carol and bells takes me by surprise as I stand up, a reaction shared by a few of the people strolling around me as well. The PA system crackles to life after the tolling bell ends. Its age shows as the principal makes a barely intelligible announcement over it, officially opening the festival that's very much in full swing. It's quite amusing to contrast the pleasant smiles of the older folks against the alternatively pained and bored grimaces of their younger charges. The students, on the other hand, seem to pay it little heed. Nevertheless, as the address finally ends, all are united in polite, if not overly enthusiastic, applause, and then get back to business. Slipping a hand into my pocket to look as relaxed as possible, I casually glance around for something to do. It's somewhat difficult to see very far with all the people around. I decide to fall back on a tired and trusted rule. Go where everyone else seems to be gathering. Right now, that's the school courtyard and surroundings. Throwing the used plate into a trash can, I make my way toward the school building. Seeing the number of stalls around the perimeter of the school building surprises me. Quite a few of the classes must have opted to have multiple stalls. In deciding which to visit first, I catch sight of a familiar banner with a blue patterned border and red text. Lily's stalls is as good a place to start as any. I'm curious as to how it's going after all the work she and her class have been doing for it. Stepping up to it, I begin to see why the class took so long to organize everything. Easily twice as wide as any of the other stalls, and with equipment for cooking strewn everywhere, it's closer to an outdoor restaurant than a festival event. As a student in front of me takes a bowl of noodles and leaves, I walk up to the counter. The girl behind it seems quite exasperated and asks me to wait a moment before she disappears underneath the counter. Seizing the moment, I take a quick glance around. Steam seems to be rising from everywhere as pots and pans simmer away. The most blind of the students are unpacking ingredients while being helped by someone who's probably the teacher of 3-2. It doesn't take long to notice Lily among them, talking with the teacher as she quickly counts the boxes and packets with her fingers. From her expression and the fact that both she and the teacher seem to be in a state of mild confusion, it appears that there's been some problem in coordination. Before I can stare any longer, the girl behind the counter pops up again, only to look back and ask where the spare change box is. Lily pauses for a moment before she and the girl switch places at the counter, and the teacher quickly walks off somewhere.
Sorry about that. We're having a few problems. What would you like?
It takes me a second to remember what I'd come here for. My eyes quickly dart to the side to read the menu sitting on the counter. I guess, miso soup?
Ah, is that Hisao?
Yep, looks like you're pretty busy. Her face all but confirms it as she drops her waitress facade.
Somewhere along the line, our order got mixed up. We're trying to fix it now, but it looks like we only have half of what we need.
Wouldn't serving smaller portions cover the problem?
It seems like that's what we'll have to do, though I wish we didn't. The fact that a good half of our class is gone doesn't help either.
I glance behind her to see how many people are actually operating the stall. It couldn't be over about 8. I take it that's why your teacher left?
That's right. She's going to try and round up a few more of our classmates to help.
Hearing the sound of footsteps behind me, I stealthily glance backwards to see an elderly couple taking a place in the line. I guess I'd better stop loitering around and chatting. Here's the money for the soup.
Soup? Oh, right. Coming right up.
Lily turns and calls for a bowl of miso soup as I hand over the money for it. Taking the coins in her palm, I can't help but notice how efficiently she counts them out with her long, pale fingers. Eventually satisfied that I've handed over correct change, she puts it into a small metal tray. It isn't long before the soup is made and carefully handed to her, after which she turns and subsequently passes it to me. Thanks, I'll come back to drop off the bowl.
Thank you, Hisao. Oh, there is one other thing. Have you seen Hanako?
Hanako? No, not today. Why? She gives a small sigh of abject disappointment.
It's okay. I was just wondering what she was doing for the festival. You'll come back when you're done then?
Sure, I'll keep an eye out for Hanako too.
Thank you, Hisao.
I walk off from the stall and find a seat, carefully cradling the steaming wooden bowl in both hands. Compared to the dumplings from before, this is quite nice. A little cool compared to what it probably should be, perhaps, but the flavor is enough to cover for that reasonably well. As I drink, I can't help but feel somewhat guilty for not being as involved in the festival as the others. It can't really be helped, considering I was dropped into the school only a week ago, but it still weighs heavily on my mind. That, and the fact that a few students don't really seem to be enjoying the festival as much as the visitors. Eventually I finish my bowl and leave for the stall to drop it off. Considering that there seems to be no line at all, I take my time walking up. It seems the teacher's mission paid off. There are now over a dozen students helping, and much of the unpacking has been done. Despite most of them seeming quite relaxed as they work, Lily still appears to be somewhat distressed. Lily doesn't look impressed at all, and I can't really blame her. On top of her issues with the stall, she seems to be worried about Hanako. I can't really help her with the former, so I guess the only way I can help is by trying to take her mind off of our shy mutual friend. Placing the bowl back on the counter, I call out to Lily. Hey, Lily, don't worry about Hanako. I'll go find her and hang out with her, okay? I can see Lily's relief plainly written across her face.
Thanks, Hisao. And if you see anyone from my class, can you tell them to come back here, please?
Will do. Have a good one, and make sure you take a break, okay?
I will if I can. See you later, Hisao.
I leave Lily and head out in search of Hanako. In a way, I feel bad for leaving her with the crowds, but even though she was clearly under pressure, I can't help but think that she's enjoying herself. The halls are packed with swaying crowds meandering throughout the festival. If there's one thing I know about Hanako, it's that she's not going to be anywhere near this. And with the students showing their friends and family their dorms, I doubt she'll be there either. Following blind intuition, I move against the grain of the crowd. Thankfully, this crowd seems to be slightly less festive than your usual festival crowd. I assume this is out of consideration for the student body. As I force my way through the masses, it doesn't take long for them to thin down into nothingness. This is not surprising, since I am standing before the library. Even the most eager of students don't bother to show anyone this section of the school. As I enter the library, the noise of the festival fades into a dull background noise, and soon I'm in the reading area at the rear of the room. Behind one of the partitioned desks, I see the top of a head, with straight, dark black hair catching my eye. Hey, Hanako. I had a feeling I'd find you here. The head jumps a little in shock before slowly peeping over the partition.
Hisao?
Hey, Lily's pretty busy, so she sent me to find you.
Oh, do you want to sit down?
Actually, I'm feeling a little hungry. Would you like to get something to eat from one of the stands?
I brought some food, so...
I shouldn't be surprised, but it was worth a try. Expecting her to go outside today was a long shot. How about we in the tea room? I passed by it on the way here and no one was around. We can make some food there, and it'll be a little more comfortable. What do you say?
Sure. Let's go.
Hanako closes her book and puts it away with deliberate, practiced movements. Good to go?
Yeah.
We walk side by side from the library to the tea room. As expected, there's barely a soul around. If it weren't for the murmurs throughout the hallways, you wouldn't tell that there was a huge festival going on outside. Hanako carries her bag in both hands and focuses on just the floor ahead of her. Every now and again, she seems to break her pace a little and steps in slightly shorter paces. The first time it happened, I gave it no mind, but I soon noticed that she does it on a regular basis. Are you alright? She stops dead in her tracks.
What?
I don't know, it looked like you were tripping or something. A pink blush rises into her cheeks as her gaze returns to the floor.
It's nothing.
You know, when you say nothing like that, people are inspired to ask further questions. For a second, I don't think she's going to answer. Prepared to leave it be, I almost set off walking again when...
It's a game.
Game?
Do you see the floor here?
What a bizarre question. The floor looks like any other floor, covered in those tiles made up from squares of linoleum. Nothing noteworthy. Well, yeah. What about it?
Sometimes, when there's no one around, I only step on the darker ones.
Hanako's voice trails off as her explanation continues, until I can barely hear her voice over the roaring silence of the empty hall. Darker ones. Shuffling her feet, Hanako points to the toe of her shoe at a tile that's barely a shade darker than the others.
Like these ones.
Oh, right. So these ones are no good? I point out a nearby tile.
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, I see. Do you play this game a lot? Hanako shakes her head. Just when the halls are empty? She nods. Well then, no point in stopping. Well then, no point in stopping. I'm beginning to get really hungry. She nods again, this time with a little more enthusiasm. Well then, let's go. We set off down the hall, and this time I notice that Hanako is paying a little less attention to the floor. I wonder, just how lonely does someone have to be to come up with a game like that? But before I realize what I'm doing, I find myself trying to aim each step so it lands on the correct tiles. The noise of the festival is slightly louder inside the tea room, but the breeze coming through the open window makes it worth it. Without thinking, I walk to the windowsill and inhale deeply. I sometimes forget how clean the air is here compared to back home.
Would you like some tea?
That would be great. Thanks. It occurs to me that this is the first time I've been alone with Hanako without her trying to be somewhere else. Turning from the window, I watch as she makes a simple pot of tea and arranges some sandwiches onto a plate. I've seen her do this before a number of times, but this time she seems slightly different. It's like she's calm. Eventually, she places a small tray on the table and pours 2 cups of tea. The fresh scent of brewed tea mingles with the breeze, and for a second I feel like I'm the only one in the world. I think I know why you like this room now.
I don't know what you mean.
Well, there are quite a few people out there, but in here it's like another world. You can pretend that there's no one around for miles.
You're right. It's like the whole world has forgotten this room. And because of that, you can forget about the outside.
That would be appealing in some cases. As far as I can tell, conventional bullying doesn't exist in this school. But then again, I haven't seen a single person talk to Hanako besides Lily. If you're ignored by the world, a place where you can forget its existence would hold a special appeal. That's a good point. It's like this room gives you some kind of complete freedom.
Yeah. Say, do you play chess?
Chess? I've played it a little bit, I guess. I take it you've played it before?
A little.
Without saying anything more, Hanako moves to one of the cupboards and digs out a small chess set.
Do you want...
Sure, why not? I cut her off, but she doesn't seem to mind. We arrange the pieces, and before long we're sending pawns charging to their inevitable fates. I take my time, and intently examine each move and its consequences, nostalgia for the game taking second place to the matters at hand. For a time the game is a lengthy battle of attrition, but I spot an opening and tear a line in her defense. A few moments later, her king is cornered by several of my pieces. Checkmate. You're not bad at this, are you? An honest appraisal. Her technique is pretty good, but several times I was able to exploit her lack of prediction. I pick up a piece and examine it. It looks relatively new, yet worn for its age.
I guess not.
Does Lily play? The absence of Hanako's answer causes me to think about my question.
A bit. This is the first time I've played against someone other than her, or...
Or? She cuts herself off abruptly, leaving the answer hanging in the air. Someone she knew before coming to Yamaku, maybe. Well then, I'm honored to have played against you.
Can we play again?
She asks as if she were cutting me. She asks as if she were asking me to cut off my own hands. The spirit of competition's gotten into her. Sure, but don't expect me to go easy on you this time. Not that I was before. Mind. She seems to appreciate the competitive tone. God, my throat is drying out so fast right now.
Same here.
As we're setting up the pieces again, there's a noise at the door. Hey!
Good afternoon. Lily.
Oh, hey there, Lily. Are you finished?
You both are here? Wonderful. At any rate, our teacher managed to round up some extra help, so I was able to leave. Have you been here since you left?
Pretty much. We've just been playing a bit of chess.
Would you like a cup of tea? Actually, I think it might be a good idea to go outside for a little while.
The instant drop on Hanako's face shows her objection to this plan, even though she says nothing. I feel strangely compelled to voice what is plainly in view on her face, but Lily can't see. I kinda think that we should just stay here.
Really? It's so crowded here that I was thinking we should leave the school and head for the local tea house. You mean the Shanghai? Of course. With everyone at the festival, it should be practically empty.
Tea house?
Oh, that's right. You probably don't know of it. There's a tea house not far from here, which we go to every so often.
Sounds like a plan. Hanako, what do you think? Hanako jumps a little at being forced into the conversation, but at least she seems less distraught than before.
If it's Shanghai, I think it'll be nice. Well then, it's settled. Let's be on our way.
Hanako and I rise from the table in our preempted chess game. Chess game? Before I can do anything, Hanako has poured the pieces into a small container and placed the board away. Looks like we're ready now. Please, lead on. Hanako moves to Lily's side and we venture onto the school's corridors. The pair leads me through a series of unfamiliar doors, and we emerge on the side of the building opposite of the festival grounds. Holy cow, my throat is so dry. I'll be right back. I gotta get some water, dude. Oh, I have some right here. I'm not used to talking this much. Ugh. The noise from the crowd has faded into a murmur. Strange. I thought that most people would be beginning to leave by now.
They're probably here to view the fireworks.
Fireworks?
Yes. Apparently the school puts on quite a show. A lot of people come from town just to watch them.
Lily's decision to leave the school grounds seems to make sense now. Hanako would probably have a hard time with the whole town descending onto the school. Or ascending, as the case may be. For the second time since arriving at Yamaku, I find myself walking down this road with Lily. Only now that I can barely hear the incessant noise of the festival do I realize how loud it was. I can hear my ears ringing slightly in the still evening air as they recover from the day's assault on them. Hanako clings to Lily, but manages to guide her along the road. That, and avoiding the occasional gaze from curious pedestrians, appears to completely sap her constitution. She rarely raises her focus from the ground in front of her, nor does she utter a word. Lily, on the other hand, maintains her prim and proper persona just as she does in school. It's obvious she purposely puts effort into her appearance, rather than hiding it as Hanako does. It's striking how different they are in their way of holding themselves outside of Yamaku's grounds. That said, it's obvious in both of their cases what they do visibly change. Inside Yamaku, everyone is special, which negates the specialness of it. But once we venture outside the school gates, we are returned to the status of outsider and generic labels, especially when we're still in school uniform. It's like hanging a sign around your neck, challenging people to figure out what's wrong with you. I'm surprised that so many of the students keep it on. Then again, with canes and wheelchairs common among the students, I guess it's not really that much of a giveaway. Or maybe I'm the one that sees this as a stigma. Or maybe I'm the only one that sees this as a stigma. Maybe you get used to it after a time, like any other school uniform. The tea house seems fairly standard from the outside. Just an ordinary building with typical designs decorating the entrance. It looks like the type of place you'd walk by without a thought. Just another generic cafe in a sea of thousands. Oh yeah, so this is where we came with Emmy and... What was the other girl's name? The red-haired girl. I forget her name, but... yeah, it started raining, and we took shelter here. If Hanako hadn't steered Lily into the entrance, I would have continued on down the road without her... I would have continued on down the road without ever knowing that it existed. Inside the tea house, it takes on a more traditional feel. Everything seems to have been made from the same lump of timber, from the countertop and benches to the high-backed booths around the walls. But the most striking feature of the room was the lack of life. I think I can faintly hear something bubbling away in the background, but otherwise the room is silent. Without any decoration, we simply wait near the entrance, politely obeying the "please wait to be seated" sign. Is this place closed or something? Fuck, God, holy shit. The sound of a chair falling over echoes throughout the empty room, and a head shoots up from inside a booth.
I wasn't asleep, and welcome to Shanghai.
Yuko, dressed in a pastel apron and clutching a menu, rushes over to greet us. Her misaligned glasses and ruffled hair cast suspicion on her previous statement. But whether she was sleeping or not isn't the first question that leaps to my mind. You work here now? What happened to the library?
What? Lily? Hisao? Welcome to the Shanghai.
Yuko, still waking up, jerks into a violent bow, dislodging her glasses in the process.
My glasses.
As I pick up her spectacles off the floor, Lily offers an explanation.
Yuko works here part-time as well as at the library. It's one of the reasons we like to come here.
Yuko takes her glasses from my hands, shakily putting them back on.
Yes, that's right. Thanks. Shall I show you to your table? There's no one else here right now, so you can choose your table and order whatever you like. But there may be a delay as I have to make it myself. It's alright, Yuko. Just a pot of black tea and a plate of sandwiches will be fine. Right, I'll get right on that.
Yuko hurries off to the back of the cafe, leaving us still standing at the entrance. She pushes the swinging half doors open before realizing that she hasn't seated us.
I'm sorry. Please sit wherever you'd like. I'll be right back.
Following her advice, I lead Lily to the nearest booth as Hanako follows. As I begin to sit next to Lily, I realize how appropriate this place is for Hanako. The high-backed booths totally separate you from the rest of the room, and it doesn't look like it gets all that many customers. All of the furnishings, from the cushion on the benches to the condiment holders, look dated, but aren't overly worn. I wonder if Lily deliberately selects places like this to take Hanako. She seems like the type that would go to great lengths to cater to Hanako's unique predicament.
So, Hisao, I didn't know you played chess.
Well, not very well, but I do know how to play.
I suppose the obvious question would now be, who won?
Lily's innocent smile makes me hesitate. I don't really want to look like I'm lording my victory over Hanako.
Hisao did.
Yeah, but not by much. Damn, saying that out loud really makes me feel like I've done something terrible.
Well done, Hisao. You've accomplished something I've only ever failed at.
Thanks. I haven't played it in ages, so it felt good to play again.
Yes, it did.
Hanako fidgets with her hair a little and looks away as she replies, but a small smile emerges. It's a little more extreme of a reaction than I expected, but still kinda cute in that Hanako way. It throws me a little off guard, and only Yuko's cataclysmic re-entry shocks me back into the conversation. Are you alright there, Yuko? Do you need a hand?
I'm fine. I have to do this properly. It's my job.
Concentration plays across her face while she stares at the tray in her hands, as if simply looking at its contents will hold them in place. Sadly, this doesn't prove all that effective. The cups and saucers slowly dance around, occasionally clattering as they collide with one another. Taking great care, Yuko sets the tray down on the table with only the subtlest of crashes.
There, see?
Well done.
Thank you, Yuko.
Yuko's head rockets downwards in her distinctive bow before answering.
You're very welcome. Would you like to join us? There's something else I'd like to discuss about that recent order, if I may.
That's right. Lily and Yuko were discussing a pile of books when I first met Hanako. Something about Lily helping with the braille.
Yes. We didn't get the chance to go through them, did we?
Yuko hastily sits down next to Hanako. Apparently, her dedication to this job only goes as far as her concentration. Once it's broken, she suddenly loses it.
I'll be in the library tomorrow afternoon if you'd like to try again.
That sounds perfect. I'll meet you there after classes.
Lily? Oh dear, that's right. Tomorrow's Monday. How could I have forgotten?
I'm starting to feel a little left out of the loop here. Then again, that's to be expected. I have been here for barely a week, so it's impossible to know everyone's schedule.
Well, perhaps we could come to some other arrangement. Yuko, will you be in the library later in the week? Maybe, but this is already overdue. And there are some things I need. This might be a problem.
Lily ponders for a second before discovering the answer.
I wonder, might we be able to enlist the help of another, if need be?
To do what? You lost me quite some time ago. Being volunteered for something without even having the slightest idea of what's going on isn't really my thing. And here I thought I had finally escaped the clutches of the student council and the repeated attempts to recruit me.
Oh, of course. The other day I was helping Yuko sort the new Braille books in the library. But Hanako and I usually go shopping on Monday afternoons. It's quieter on that day than on weekends. Last week we couldn't go because I was busy with the festival. I managed to slip away later in the week, but Hanako couldn't make it.
Well, since I can't read Braille, I'm assuming you'd like me to go shopping with Hanako?
Correct. You were a great help to me the other day.
I think I can handle that. Hanako, what do you think?
If you wouldn't mind.
Of course not. I'm still not familiar with all the stores in the area, so it sounds like a good idea.
Okay. Now that we have that arranged, shall we have some tea?
It's now that I realize our teas have been sitting idly by all this time, getting no hotter.
It's my fault. Let me pour that for you.
Yuko reaches out with shaking hands, but I intercept her. She looks in no state to be handling hot liquids. It's alright, I've got it. Since you've already made the tea and sandwiches, you fulfilled your waitress duties, right?
I guess.
Yuko relaxes a little, but still watches eagerly as I share out the assortment. Holy shit, I thought I just got shot or something, dude. Oh my god. I thought I just got like popped in the back of the head, like just a drive-by or something. As I'm about to bite into the sandwich, a loud, low rumble can be heard, along with a flash of light from outside.
I take it the show has started.
Only now looking outside, I realize that the dusk has come and gone, leaving us in the peak of twilight. Sparking tracers arc upwards, ready to explode in the floral shapes of fireworks.
Let's go watch! Oh, sorry, Lily. Please, don't miss the show on my account. From what I've heard, this isn't a bad location to watch them from.
With the exception of Lily, we rush to the window of the small tea house to watch the show. The strobe of colored lights plays across Hanako and Yuko's smiling faces, and for a second, I forget to look out the window. In this totally new world, there are a few things that don't change. I think that's why the school makes such a fuss over this festival. It's a chance to show the similarities between everyone. The show's over all too quickly. Fireworks are expensive, even for the most well-funded schools. Before we return to our tea and sandwiches, Hanako turns to me.
Thanks for today. And tomorrow.
That's okay. I don't think that I could have faced those crowds either. On days like this, it's more relaxing to spend some time away from everyone, don't you think?
Yeah.
Anyway, we've been delaying this tea for far too long now. Let's get back.
Sure.
We return to the booth and our light meal.
That sounded impressive. Bigger than last year's, at least. Yeah, it was great. I've never seen them put on such a show. It gets better every year. I'm afraid, however, that during that time the tea has gone cold. Oh no, let me make some more. This is my fault.
Calm down, Yuko. It's nobody's fault. I take a sip from my cup just to prove the point. This tea isn't too bad cool. This tea isn't too bad cool, anyway. It's like an iced tea.
Really?
Yeah, really. If you add a bit of sugar, it's kind of nice.
Are you sure?
I'm positive. Now why don't you sit down and we'll finish this together?
Okay.
Yuko doesn't seem convinced, but sits down regardless. She carefully measures out about 5 teaspoons of sugar and adds them to her tea. I said a bit of sugar.
I know, but I like my tea sweet anyway.
Curiously, I peer into her cup. As expected, hardly any of the sugar dissolves in the cold liquid. She stirs it twice before upturning the cup and drinking the contents, sugar and all, in a single mouthful.
You're right, this is not bad at all.
Good. I look back to Lily and Hanako, both of whom have finished their meal as I witnessed Yuko's personality in action. Not wanting to hold anyone up, I use her tactic and finish the remainder of my tea in a single swill. Well then, seems we're all finished.
Should we head back now, or do we want seconds?
Yuko's expression shows that this is quite clearly not a good idea. I think it would be best if we got back soon. We don't want to get back before curfew. We do want to get back before curfew after all.
Oh, right. That is a good point. I'll meet you tomorrow, Yuko. I'll be looking forward to it, Lily. Goodbye, everyone.
We make our way out of the small tea house and into the dark of the night. Lily and Hanako once again take point, but under the cover of darkness, Hanako seems slightly less stressed than she did on the trip here. We move against the occasional group of people emptying the school grounds, but Hanako seems to lead us along a few minor roads, avoiding the bulk of the crowd. Outside the dorms, the school seems strangely quiet when compared to the noise of the day. Well then, thank you both for today. I think I learned a lot.
You're most welcome, but I'm afraid that I really must be going. Today's been a long day.
That's right. Lily spent all of today on her feet, and I can imagine that walking outside of the school would be pretty tiring for her. I feel a pang of guilt as I remember that I was probably the only one in the school that got up around 10 this morning. Sure thing. Well, I'll see you both tomorrow. Good night.
Good night, Hisao. Night.
The girls returned to their dorm, and I to mine. Actually, now that I consider it, today tired me out as well. Pills. Alright, who's this? Hanako. Bruh, get out of here, Sammy. Oh. Hey! Oh, baby! Oh my god. Dude, those little animated bits are so good. They're fucking amazing. Did I like... Did Hisao just like kiss her? Did he just kiss her there? Yes, baby. Let's go. God, those animated bits are genuinely so fucking well done. It's really impressive. Alright, let's save it again. Create new save state. From the little animation bit we just saw, we can definitely infer that, you know, obviously it's playing on the fact that she really doesn't do well in crowds. And that we're kind of like a standout for her. But yeah, I'm kind of interested to know more about her personal and like family life. Anyways, that's going to be for this time. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like on it. And if you enjoy this series or are interested in any other series or videos on my channel, then I highly recommend that you hit the subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you can be notified when one of those videos comes out. That's going to be from me, and I'll see you in the next one.